Hello YouTube, I am your host, the Crimson Warrior, and today I would like to discuss with you guys why Nekroz is not winning in the current meta. And the reason I wanted to talk to you guys about this is because I'm feeling rather nostalgic as of late, and I finally have almost an entire Nekroz core together, other than the fact that Extravagance is an $80 card that I don't want to purchase because Nekroz is not a viable deck, and I am not going to be getting wins with it in the most competitive aspect, and it would be, as shitty it is to say, a waste of my money. And so I am waiting for Extravagances to get cheap before I play the deck to its full potential, but I wanted to discuss with you guys why the deck isn't doing well, even for those who have access to everything they need to make the deck work. And it really boils down to these three factors. One, common techs in the meta that everyone's running at 3 at this point, practically. 2, the skill required to play the deck. And 3, the deck's own mechanic in ritual summoning and how it inherently forces you to go so negative. So starting with common tech choices in the meta, everyone is running, well, at least if you are a combo deck and not Thunder Dragon. And then if we were playing Thunder Dragon, we would lose anyway just because of danger cards. Everything in the deck is a viable Call by the Grave target, except for Decisive Armor, Cataster, and maybe Gungnir. I'm not sure about Gungnir because what's defending you is the damage step, and both Decisive Armor and Gungnir activate in the damage step, and Called by the Grave cannot respond at that time. I'm pretty sure. Not 100% on that, so don't call me out. And if I am wrong, let me know, just so I can correct that for future knowledge. Next up, 3 triple Ash Blossom is just about in every deck in the format right now. Like, even in the side, which is still pretty detrimental. And while a good Nekroz player can probably bait out that Ash Blossom and make a good Nekroz board, that goes back to the skill required to play the deck. You need to bait out that Ash Blossom. You need to play carefully and consider that your opponent probably has this tech. And then going into people's side decks, we have triple Drawlin Lockbird becoming mainstay in the format for a couple of reasons. There's Trickstar Reincarnation, stops Danger Thunder Dragon's turn. It works against the top tier of competitive play, and so when you take a card like that just completely stops our turn, and you put it against a deck that's already rogue, already struggling, things can get ugly really fast, and it just makes it really hard for us to play. And everyone who is playing Nekroz should be playing triple Called by the Grave because of these weaknesses. But it's really sad to see that the state that the deck's in after its power in 2015, and how, like, me as a Blackwing player, I thought the deck was undefeatable due to the hand trap nature. I mean, that's why I picked up Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit when it originally came out, because I thought it was broken, because it was in my memory, other than Effect Failure, the first non-Nekroz hand trap, basically, that did something, and I really liked that, and I really thought that would be the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is trap cards that weren't really trap cards that you could activate from your hand, and now we have trap cards that are actually trap cards that you can activate from your hand. So I was really right on that front, because the game evolved right to where I thought it would go. So sadly, we are there now, and so to balance this out, the fact that hand traps are everywhere and so prolific in the game, Called by the Grave was created. And now it is running around amok in everyone's main, and until either combo decks are less popular and people are less concerned about it, or Called by the Grave loses favor for some reason or another, which I don't seeing, I don't foresee in the future happening at all within this game. The deck is just going to struggle against its bad matchups, and even against its good matchups, there's going to be a game where the right card gets hit and you just lose the game. Next up, the reason the deck is not doing too well is the skill cap on the deck. The skill you need not to overextend with this deck and just do exactly what you need to do is incredible. The problem with Nekroz is how easy it is to overextend. You can use your whole hand in a turn quite easily, but you're not supposed to. And I would even go as far as to say that probably only the players who played the deck back in 2015, who began to understand every play line and which ones they should and should not take, are probably the only players that are probably going to get anywhere with the deck in today's format, or a player with the time to learn those interactions and to grind through the losses and figure out what the deck needs. But that takes a lot of patience that us as Yu-Gi-Oh! Players seem not to have. We want our wins fast. We want our wins somewhat easy sometimes, I won't lie. And when you're losing again and again and again with this ritual-based deck and you're just to activate your deck's mechanic, you're going neg2, okay, well, neg1 if you're using incantations and stuff like that, and you manage to get a search off, but you're still going negative summoning these monsters, and when every other deck does nothing but go positive when they're summoning their monsters, it's really hard to fight your opponent's resources. And so on top of that, the two routes the deck is currently going down, the two most popular routes, is you have Zaborg Turbo and you have Vanity Rulers Turbo. Now, there are problems with both of these. They're both a turn 1 style of Nekroz, and other than one or two other tops that I have heard of, I believe, it's only been turn 1 Zaborg or Vanity Ruler Nekroz. There was one turn 2 builds that I don't know a lot about that I saw on MCole40's page. But, back onto the point, Zaborg is inconsistent. The problem is you have to draw it, and you have to draw the incantation to summon it, and you also have to draw the ritual card that's going to activate your incantation, which the last two aren't too hard. Incantations and having rituals normally isn't too difficult. It does brick sometimes, and there are problems with it. But getting Zaborg as a 3-of out of your deck turn 1 consistently is just not something you can ask for an event that's going 12 rounds, 3 duels around. You can't ask for that kind of consistency out of the deck. So then you're like, okay, how can I fix this? Well, then you look at Vanity Ruler and Ben 10, and you're like, okay, I can search Ben 10 like 10 different ways in the deck if I were like, well, you can't use Monjus. Okay, so incantations, you know, your 12 incantation lineup and getting to Ben 10, and Ben 10 gets you to Vanity Rulers, and the incantations set you up for the Vanity Ruler summon. Cool. What if Vanity Rulers didn't get you to the game? Like, what if you're going up against Draco Sack, or a deck that just normal summons, and that's all it does, or a deck that puts out small monsters and just backs them up with traps, and those traps take care of your Vanity Rulers? The game's over. Like, I get it. It should net you games, but there are games where you're not going to get the free win off of Vanity Rulers, and by that point you went so probably neg just summoning the thing that you're not in a good spot in the duel. So on top of the techs everyone's running, on top of the fact that the deck has a high skill cap, one of the last things that really the deck suffers from is its own mechanic. The fact that you are, in the worst of scenarios, going neg2 to summon these monsters to hopefully just to engage with what your deck does. Like, you have to have the Ritual Monster, which stays on board. So that's the one card you get to keep. But then you have to have the Ritual Spell, which goes to grave, resource lost. Then you have the stars required to summon that monsters, which, depending on the card, like, this can be from where we go -2 to a 0, basically, in card economy. But worst off, you're still going -2 to just activate what your deck normally does on its own. So in those cases, like, your card economy instantly puts you in a spot where if your opponent has any outs or can do anything to you, you're left with 2 resources to figure out what you're going to do, and a deck that already required 3 resources to do its first play. So its own mechanic really defeats it sometimes. And I love ritual decks. I hate talking about it this way, but when decks in a modern standard are so efficient card-wise, have such great card economy, and just go plus after plus after plus, Salamangreat getting +3 off of one card, Orcust going insane as long as you don't Lancia them, Danger Thunder Dragon with their danger danger cards, which are all free basically, free body on board, free draw a card most of the time, or free search or whatever it is. And that really puts the deck in a hard spot, because even though card economy isn't everything in Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's still life points, there's still pushing and, winning the game off of the skin of your teeth and the skill of your plays. Like, if you're 3 cards behind, you're still going to have a very rough time of it turning things around or taking that game, because of how limited you are on your options. Now, there's players that do it, and it happens because of the skills and the situations that arise in this game, but it's not the general. It's the exception to the rule. These players are rare, and they're not even playing Nekroz for the most part. Some are just picking it up for nostalgia for a little bit, and then realizing how negative the deck goes and putting it down again. I think that's the reason the card prices just floored when the reprints hit the market, because the deck doesn't win. Why are we paying so much for these cards if it doesn't win? So, lastly, as a bonus, Nekroz is traditionally a going second deck, which in this format is like committing seppuku. Like, you can't... Going second's just so hard, this format. You have to get stuff for free. You have to be like Cyber Dragon. You have to be like Pankratops. You have to be like Super Poly. You have to start getting things for free if you're going second, because these negate boards, unless you're activating a card saying your opponent cannot respond, and that goes through, you're probably not going to be able to play the deck. So there is a going second build going around with like triple evenly matched, and I did hear it did semi-well, but it's still just such an uphill battle. Like, do you really want to fight Salamangreats, set Rage and Permanence, probably 2 hand traps in hands, and the whole Salamangreat board? Like, now I get that Salamangreats are best matchup, but when they go turn 1 and they get everything set up, it's rough. I don't care what anyone says, it's going to be rough. And so, inherently, the deck's just put in a really bad spot this meta because of all of these factors. So now I flip it to you guys. What do you guys think? Why is the deck not performing well? Would Unicorn and Shuret coming off of the ban list really help? Which I can't wait to test and actually start learning the ins and outs of this deck and play lines. What do you think could start to bring the deck back, whether it's a change in the format or maybe focusing on the going second aspect? Most of the people who are trying to play Nekroz now are trying to adjust it for the format and force it into a going first deck when it was never never built like that to begin with. Nekroz really likes having 6 cards to play with, especially because of the mechanic that you're trying to engage in most of the time. And so I'd like to hear from you guys. What do you think the deck needs? What could really give us a boost? What would make it so Nekroz wins again? Like this video, smash that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content, and hit that notification bell if you'd like to see me every time I upload, because it ain't stopping now. Peace, guys.